Well, hello and welcome to History's a Blast. It's middle of October and you can see the leaves are starting to fall. It's getting chipper. Leaf blowers going in the neighborhood. We're back in the city. Merryweather's underground for the winter. And even though we're going to be publishing historical videos from our camping season well into December, and we'll have other videos that we continue to publish from other day trips that we'll continue to take, I thought it'd be good idea to put together a season in review, because even though we are up to 870 subscribers now, not very many of you are watching all of our videos. It seems the railroad videos are very popular, but the Civil War videos and so on. There's other videos that maybe you've missed. New subscribers have come along since we started publishing this year, and I thought it'd be a good idea to do a season review to let you know what we've been up to since May, in case you've missed it. And you might want to go back and look at some of those videos. So come along for the ride. Since getting into the RV lifestyle 2 years ago, we've kept our travel trailer, a 19-foot Rockwood GeoPro, which we named Merryweather, in climate-controlled underground storage about an hour and a half from our home in an urban neighborhood with absolutely no room for a camping trailer. We approached the 2022 camping season differently in two ways. First, instead of getting Merryweather in and out of storage between trips as in the past, we decided to rent a campsite for the whole season. We'll get into the whys and the wherefores in a future video in the GeoPro Merryweather Diary series, but here I'll just say that we found having a base camp from which to come and go, or just as a retreat from time to time, very nice. Secondly, a growing need to help care for an aged parent on an irregular schedule will preclude travel far from home for the foreseeable future. Thus, our theme for this season's review, camping closer to home. In the event, all turned out for the best, as inflationary prices soon after the season started had a lower impact on our travels than they seem to have had on many other RVers. Between two short camping trips in the spring, we made some day trips to explore the area around our base camp at the Silver Canoe Campground. We also upgraded to a custom-made memory foam mattress from mattressinsider.com for Merryweather's Murphy bed, which we made an unboxing video about. Our day trips took us north to the Corps of Engineers Dam on Mahoning Creek, with a stop in the village of Dayton to document the abandoned railroad station there, and a drive-through of the nearby Milton Loop campground, and then west to Katanning, the county seat steeped in 18th century frontier history and home to the County Historical Society's museum. We hope you'll go back and look at the videos we made on those trips if you haven't already seen them. In May and June, we made two short trips east for events at Franklin County's historical Fort Loudon, a French and Indian war stockade reconstructed on its original site. The nonprofit group responsible for this wonderful historical resource hosts a number of fundraising events in association with living history groups portraying military and civilian life each year. Across the Centuries in May brought reenactors from all eras as far back as classical Greece. We returned in June for another visit to 18th century market days, and it was as great an event as last year's, which we also published a video about back then. On both trips, we made brief midway stopovers to keep moving day travel time under 3 hours at a wonderful little campground called Wright's Orchard Station near the railroad town of Altoona. We made a short review video about that, as well as longer videos exploring the canal history of the area, which we invite you to look at. In early July, we made a 10-day camping trip into Northern Virginia for a long overdue visit with friends from long ago Army days, and for a day at the Bull Run National Battlefield. Note that we changed our planned route in mid-trip. A word here about how we choose our driving routes. We minimize our use of interstates and other high-speed routes. The 70 miles, or 120 kilometers, per hour speed limit these days is just too fast for us when towing Merryweather. The max speed rating for his tires is 65, by the way, and Merryweather fully loaded challenges our mid-size pickup truck's power in the hilly and mountainous terrain of Appalachia, where we live, and therefore spend a great deal of our camping time anyway. So our average speed tends to be 45 miles, about 70 kilometers per hour. And even in level terrain, we limit our sustained speed to between 60 and 65 miles per hour. routes with uphill truck lanes are definitely preferred. And here's a dash cam show and tell on why we changed our planned route after the first day. Driving south on I-99 on a long uphill stretch in third gear at 55 miles or just under 100 kilometers per hour in rain, this semi-truck came out of the blind area behind Merriweather, and we have rearview mirror extensions, by the way, and pulled right in front of us at very high speed, I'd say more than 70 miles an hour, followed by even faster moving cars. So on our next leg, we bypassed our planned route south on I-70 into Maryland, as shown here. All things considered, keeping to our daily 3-hour drive time limit, even on this relatively short trip of 250 or so miles, about 400 kilometers, required 2 intermediate stops both going and coming. We chose Shawnee State Park near Bedford, Pennsylvania for our first and last night campsites. Its campground is one of the few but growing in number in Pennsylvania's state park system, with some full hookup sites, and we were able to book one for midweek stays on our outbound and homeward journeys. During our 2-night stay on the way south, we toured the Fort Bedford Museum. Built to commemorate yet another French and Indian War fort, it's been around since the 1950s, and I remember a childhood visit to it in the 60s. And it remained unchanged for decades, but recent renovations added new state-of-the-art exhibits while keeping the best of the old, and it's well worth an hour-long visit. Later, we followed an abandoned railroad north along the Raystown branch of the Juniata River, seeking remnants of the area's industrial and transportation heritage from the early 20th century. We've included links to the videos from those excursions, as well as the others shown in this review, in the description. After a restful day in Bedford County, we headed south on a leisurely drive through Cumberland, Maryland, and along the Potomac River, crossing into West Virginia and entering the Shenandoah Valley at Winchester, where we overnighted at the Backroom Brewery, taking advantage of our Harvest Hosts membership. Harvest Hosts is a nationwide network of breweries, wineries, farms, and other venues that offer free overnight RV camping in return for your patronage. It's mostly boondocking or dry camping, so you should plan on arriving with onboard fresh water and empty waste tanks to be dumped at your next destination. It was a hot, rainy day, and it took us a while to find a spot there where we could level up with our blocks. We got wet, but we were able to dry off and relax in the tap room with good beer and good bar food. Next day, it was on to our destination at the Bull Run Regional Park, just a few miles from the Bull Run National Battlefield. The regional park has a big campground, and our very spacious pull-through site had full hookups, although it was a bit of a hike to the bathhouse for warm showers. After a wonderful reunion and Dutch oven dinner with old friends, we spent the next day taking in some of the highlights of the National Battlefield, which memorializes 2 key Civil War battles in 1861 and 1862 that are the subject of 2 video episodes on the channel. The return leg of this journey took us north through northern Virginia's horse country and back into West Virginia with brief stops at a couple of seldom-seen Civil War sites. In Charlestown, not to be confused with the state capital of Charleston, we visited the site where the famous or infamous abolitionist John Brown was hanged in 1859. A few miles up the road on the Maryland side of the Potomac from Shepherdstown is Ferry Hill, the boyhood home of one Henry Kidd Douglas, well known to Civil War buffs as the author of I Rode with Stonewall, his eminently readable memoir of service on the famous Stonewall Jackson's staff. It was only a short diversion from there to the Antietam National Battlefield, which we had only time to drive through before heading on to another overnight Harvest Host stay at the Rusty Nail Winery near Martinsburg, where a very congenial evening was had by all. Big plans for a longer camping trip through the Allegheny National Forest and north to the Lake Erie shore turned into 2 shorter excursions for reasons which I'll explain a little later. We planned a 2-day layover at Cook Forest State Park and its ancient old-growth forest before spending a week in and around western New York's famous Lake Chautauqua. There's a lot to see in Cook Forest, and we were able to get in some hiking in the beautiful woods, but when we returned to Merriweather for a late supper, we found our senior kitty cat, Tabitha, was having trouble with her hind legs. Not knowing the problem was temporary or something worse, and fortunately, being only a few hours from home, we decided to cancel our reservations for the time being, drop Meriwether back off at Silver Canoe, and get Tabby on to an emergency clinic back in Pittsburgh. Fortunately, our regular vet could see her the next day, and it turned out to be something probably related to a fall. She's getting to the point where she doesn't jump as well as she used to, but she doesn't yet know her limitations. 3 days on an anti-inflammatory medication, and Tabby was as good as new. So we decided to keep our reservations for a 4-night stay at Whispering Winds Campground in the middle of the National Forest on the return leg of the planned Camp Aganza, and meanwhile we built a ramp and took other safety measures, all of which we'll cover in a future video. Tabby was fine on that trip, and the rest of the camping season was kitty accident-free too. Our last camping trip for 2022 took us to Burnt Cabins, PA, with the usual stopover going and coming at Wright's Orchard Campground in mid-October. The attraction this time was the Narrow Gauge East Broad Top Railroad's annual Fall Spectacular and the coincident Friends of the East Broad Top annual reunion. Lots of things are on the calendar, and we're still editing the raw footage from the weekend, so please stay tuned. More than that is yet to come from day trips and loose screw kinds of things in the now 3-year-old Meriwether, which has traveled about 6,500 bouncy miles by now. So we hope you'll stay with us, and please like and share with your friends if the notion strikes. That's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and will take time to view some of our other ones.